Sometimes the tried and true monsters can be a little predictable, especially when we're running homebrew worlds or original settings. It's natural to want something fresher than the usual suspects.
Now, there's a few ways that you can handle this as a game master. The first is reflavoring. You take an existing stat block and just describe it differently. It's quick, it works, but sometimes it starts to wear a little thin. Your players may still recognize the troll under all the reflavoring that you've done on top of it.
On the other end, you can build a bespoke monster from scratch that's powerful and rewarding, but it's also time consuming. Balancing stats, designing unique abilities, and writing everything out can eat up hours you may not have.
That's why today we're going to show you a third option, one which we affectionately call our Frankenstein method for monster making. It's a middle ground that combines the speed of reflavoring with the creativity of custom design. With this method, you can build something that feels bespoke, surprising, and fun without spending your whole game prep time buried in stat blocks in the monster manual. If you've ever wanted to run a TTRPG campaign that can handle both the gritty, survival, desperate elements that are so fun, but also capture that glorious, god-killing saga at the same time,
Well, luckily, the sponsor of this week's video, Grit and Glory, have created exactly that. It's a dual-sided TTRPG that's built for incredible player freedom, and they just launched their Kickstarter.
this system is built for customization. Your stats are uncapped, and you can mix and match ancestries to truly personalize your character's history. Your character's goals actually give you mechanical benefits when you achieve them, and your character's flaws can give you bonus talent points to build more.
And the progression is all about you. With their massive talent trees, you can create fully unique characters, from a spellcaster that uses mana instead of spell slots, to a martial character who can use hundreds of different combat techniques, not just a standard attack. You can even make a tank that can actually draw in aggression.
For Game Masters, monsters get multiple full turns and can use epic telegraphed attacks that let the players use their smarts to avoid them. It makes combat really fluid with action points, and characters in a dying state can still act instead of just sleeping.
They've even got a really fun crafting system and deep social rules that are based on your reputation.
So if all of this sounds like exactly what you're looking for in a TTRPG, you've got to check this out. The Grit and Glory Kickstarter runs from September 24th, and you can find the G&G YouTube channel and other socials for more information about the system. Make sure you use our custom link to get started.
And now, let's get rolling. So, what is this Frankenstein method? Think of it like kit bashing miniatures. You're going to start with one monster as your body, then mix and match features, much like Victor Frankenstein attaching body parts. You're going to take attacks, traits, defenses, or abilities from other monsters until you've stitched together something new. The mechanics are borrowed, but the combination is original. It's quick, flexible, and instantly makes your monster feel like it was designed just for your campaign.
The first step is finding a good body to build off of, the core stat block that you're going to build on top of. Think of the size, creature type, movement, and the CR that you want. D&D Beyond makes this really easy since you can filter monsters by those traits until you find the one that's right for you.
The body is going to give you all of the boring math up front. Your ability scores, hit points, armor class, saving throws, and attack bonuses. That's actually all the heavy lifting of monster design. And you don't need to calculate any of it yourself. Instead, you get to focus on the fun part of monster design, which is customization.
So let's say that you want to make a monster that is like a regenerating swamp creature that drags adventurers into the bog and smells really bad. Maybe we start with a troll. It's a large CR5 monster, and its regeneration kind of hits that hard-to-kill feeling that we're going for.
From there, we're going to add a swim speed and change its creature type to aberration or maybe even plant, and we might reflavor its look with moss and muck. Suddenly, you've got a fresh new threat lurking in the marsh, built in minutes. But we could even swap its vulnerabilities and resistances, maybe make cold damage shut off its regeneration, and give it resistance to fire. Simple swaps like this go a long way towards making a monster feel new.
But does it? I mean, it still kind of feels like a troll, right? So what's really going to sell this fantasy is giving it an ability that captures the image of vines pulling heroes down into the bog. And since it's a swamp creature, we want to represent its like foul, stinking aura that it brings around it.
Well, okay, this is actually no problem because all we actually need to do is find monsters that already have those features and bolt them onto our troll's modified stat block. Maybe we borrow the tentacle and reel attacks from the roper so that we can drag the characters into the muck, and then we add the stench aura from the catoblepus. To keep things balanced, we'll drop one of the troll's existing features so it doesn't feel overloaded as we're tacking on all this new stuff.
The monster in my head is more of a massive swamp muck, so its loathsome limbs ability doesn't really make sense anymore. We'll cut that. And the tentacles and reel give this monster a lot of reach, so it doesn't really need the troll's charge bonus action anymore either. We cut those, it keeps the design cleaner, and it helps balance the overall monster.
And now we've got a hulking swamp brute with writhing tentacles and a foul bog aura, a monster your players have never truly witnessed before. This technique works with almost anything. You could slap a wyvern's tail stinger onto an ogre, or give a pack of gnolls the pack tactics trait from wolves. Small swaps like these can make a monster feel instantly fresh without needing to redesign the entire thing from scratch.
Now, it can be really easy to get lost in the monster manual looking for fresh ideas, but fortunately, there have been a lot of monsters out there with traits and abilities that we can look at as universal templates. These are well-written mechanics that do one job really well, and they're perfect for stitching onto an existing stat block to make it feel brand new.
For example, let's look at some defensive traits. Regeneration from the troll or vampire is the gold standard. Nothing changes the flow of a fight like an enemy that keeps healing itself.
Parry from the gladiator or the veteran works perfectly to give a martially trained opponent a reactive defensive edge. And amorphous or corrosive forms from oozes make them feel strange and otherworldly when applied to another creature.
You might want to be a little careful if you're adding a very powerful defensive feature. There's things like the Displacer's Beast's Displacement, or things like Magic Resistance or Legendary Resistance. Choosing these might be worth bumping up your final monster's CR a little.
On the offensive side, we can grab things like the pincer grapple from the Chul or the charge from the troll to make brutes more dangerous when they close the gap.
Pack Tactics from the Wolf is actually fantastic for if you're designing smaller creatures that swarm and coordinate their attacks against enemies, and Tentacles and Reel from the Roper is ideal for monsters with vines, tendrils, or appendages.
There's tons of monsters that knock player characters prone or knock them back. You can just look at all your giants and ogre stat blocks to find examples of those. You could grab the Death Gaze from the Bodak to add a terrifying don't look at it mechanic, or maybe even the Medusa's Petrifying Gaze. And there's all those kind of aura abilities from various creatures like the Balor or Azers that capture like a monster that's on fire or that damages it when you attack. And of course, if you're just looking for a template for a generic AoE vomit or breath weapon, there's a dragon at every single challenge rating that you can basically just change the damage type on and even the saving throw type, and you've got exactly what you need.
Beyond that, don't forget the basics. Every monster needs a bread and butter attack. A lot of monsters will attack with claw and bites, and something like the Troll's Rend cover most of these bestial monsters. Martial NPCs like the Soldier, Veteran, Gladiator, or Scout already have solid weapon attacks and tons of bonus actions that you might be able to grab to tack on for a more martial feeling.
And if you're building a spellcaster, the Mage and Archmage stat blocks provide your basic arcane burst for your normal, like, magically ranged attack. And they also show you the template that you can use for spellcasting creatures. And you can swap spells around on these stat blocks. Just be careful when you are swapping spells around because that can change the overall CR of a monster, particularly if you add higher level spells or like some of the really strong damage dealing spells.
When you're grabbing these traits, you're going to use the new abilities mechanics, but you're going to substitute the attack bonus and save DC of the body monster. That way, everything stays consistent with the stats you've already got.
For damage, the body is also usually going to give you a solid baseline as well. Just look at whatever its basic attack is. The only time you might need to be careful if you're borrowing from a monster with a much lower or higher CR. In those cases, you might need to compare and contrast against a couple other target CR monsters, especially if it's an AoE ability or a recharge power. You can also change around some of the monster's ability scores, saving throws, and skill proficiencies pretty freely without affecting the CR. The thing that you want to be careful about doing is Don't change the attack bonus, the save DC, AC, hit points. All of that should just stay the same or as close to the same as possible. If you do start changing those, especially if you're increasing them, you may be increasing the monster's CR. There's a lot of technical things that happen behind the scenes when you're trying to actually make a monster properly, where you have to decide like what ability score is this ability based on. When we're doing this method, we do not care about any of that. We're just grabbing the raw numbers and making sure that those are just the same for a monster of the right CR.
And that actually is great advice if you're just doing a quick and dirty version of this at the table for a quick monster. If you're grabbing a bunch of stuff from monsters that are the same CR, there's a good chance that you can just tack it on without changing much at all. The aforementioned troll with roper abilities and the Catoblepas stench, those are all CR5, so we can basically just tack them on and assume that they're all going to work at around the same level. Here's a really important piece of advice regarding the Frankenstein method is don't overload your Frankenstein monster. Simple is always going to be better. As a DM, you already have a lot to juggle at the table, so don't make your life harder with a stat block that has 5 reactions, 3 recharge powers, and a wall of text to track. As a rule of thumb, don't give your monster more traits than its proficiency bonus. You can give or take 1 here. It doesn't really matter, but sticking around that is important. I also try to keep things limited to no more than 1 reaction, 1 bonus action, and 1 recharge ability, unless the monster is meant to be a boss or a solo encounter that is of epic proportions for your game.
Yeah, and a monster can have one of each of those. So you can have a monster that has its basic attack, a recharge power, a reaction, and a bonus action, and that works just fine, and maybe a trait or 2 on top of that. And there you have it. That basically is the method that we use for building monsters in just a few minutes. I have literally done this technique at the table. Like sometimes I will grab a miniature and be like, okay, I was going to use the Iron Golem or I was going to use a Griffin here, but that feels kind of boring. And I decided that like on the spot, and I opened up a couple tabs in D&D Beyond and just grabbed 3 stat blocks and smashed them together on the spot. Once you get used to doing this, it's really, really easy to do. You're just using the core stats of the body and grabbing whatever abilities that you want from other monsters. And it starts to feel very natural and easy to do. And you get a sense as well of, again, those universal templates that you can draw on. And it's kind of that Rolodex of like monsters that you can just like, oh, I just need to dial up something that has a grapple and a shove, and I got it.
Yeah, the first time that you do this might take you 15, 20 minutes to come up with a new monster, but after you've done it a handful of times, you're going to be able to make a new monster in a matter of minutes
Maybe
without
even seconds.
with maybe even seconds, maybe even on the fly without anybody noticing you're doing it at the table. So try it out. Frankenstein some abilities together, add a fresh description to make an old monster feel new, tweak its type maybe, or the damage, or the movement to match your theme, and your players are never going to guess where all the pieces actually are coming from.
Creating monsters is one of my favorite things in D&D. We did a whole book of monsters, and many of them began as these Frankenstein creations. And then we took that and developed it a little bit further and worked on more ways to make them more unique. So this can be a great bridge from starting out reflavoring and into actually designing your own monsters in a way that isn't a slog.
Because the truth is that even when you're designing a brand new monster, you might not need to do everything from scratch. More than one monster is allowed to have pack tactics or charge or regeneration. These abilities can be universal. So sometimes the thing you're trying to capture with your monster is already out there. And a lot of times, it's all already out there, and you just need to put the pieces together to make the thing that you need to impress the players at your table and have them second guessing what it actually is that they're fighting. And that makes the game a lot richer and more fun, in my opinion. So, if you've made any really cool monsters using a method like this, what are some of your favorite traits and abilities to slap onto monsters? Tell us your favorites in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. Our Patreon supporters get tons of cool things. They get our Eldritch Experiments, which are it's a monthly packet of a new subclass, some new spells, some feats stuff, all of which is 5e and 2024 compatible. They get a bonus actual plays from us and early access to all of our videos as well a week before they drop on YouTube. So some of that sounds good to you and you want to support the channel, follow the links down below.
And if you want to play the guessing game of what Monty has decided to use for the body of his monsters, check out our actual play in the Worlds of Drakkenheim, where we never know what we're fighting. All of the previous episodes you can find right up over here.
We got plenty more tips for DMs right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next time
In the dungeon.